She's a sweetheart, too.
Yeah. I gotta get a gift certificate for my wife.
Okay, welcome to the 2015-16 budget. Tonight we'll be going over the library, recreation, pool, debt service, and reserves. We have a request to move the item 6, the TIF, to the 26th. So we will have all the information available for that. Is there any objections to that? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move item 6, TIF, to the 26th meeting. So first item on the list is the library.
Good evening. Debbie Lozito, Director of the Edith Dyer Library in Hamden. I didn't really prepare an introduction, but Councilor Marble suggested it might be a good idea to update you on the grant, on the King grant that we have going on, $50,000 in case anyone forgot.
We wouldn't.
Which is, the part that we're waiting on right now is to put the RFP out for the LED lights. It's a huge job. So I have a guy, Steve, and I can't remember his last name, from Ken Electric in Bangor, is looking up all the different fixtures and whatever to put in the RFP, because we want everyone to be able to bid on the same thing. Hopefully Sean will help me with that when he gets time. So that's, any questions about the actual budget?
Council Marble?
I had a few questions. The office supplies line, you have to understand when you're my age, you know, things make sense 2 days ago, and now I look at my notes and I'm not completely clear.
I do understand that.
But my comment was, quote, "Is that all for a year?"
Well, yeah. Most of our supplies come out of the 1020, which is below that, the bottom line in that section, which are library supplies. We don't really use a lot of office supplies.
Okay.
Paper, which I have to say we recycle, like every sheet of paper gets cut up to be, you know.
Okay.
So, yeah, 500 is pretty much all we need.
Similarly, the photocopier had costs associated with it up until the 13-14 budget. Do you have
But
a
I never-
copier?
But we have a copier, but GIS IT pays for everything. And I think that line was just in there. I'm trying to remember. When we gave photocopy money back to that,
When they had repairs that went along with it, we now have a lease plan that includes repairs.
Okay.
And all of that kind of thing, so there's no more assigning repair costs by a department.
But that cost is, it's a general under admin or something?
Yes.
Okay. And the last one, and I'll stop, was just give me a sense of what the building repair line is. And I'm guessing that's separate from King Foundation work.
yes, it is. It's things, well, like light bulbs, which hopefully we won't need to change anymore. The reason that went up so much,
Yeah.
well, the janitor, and for 2 years in a row, we've had some sort of weather event that caused us to have to use insurance, which is $1,000 deductible, which has come out of that line. So I thought, you might as well have enough for paying for that kind of stuff.
The cleaning expense. The library experimented with doing its own, having staff clean that tough, and it was not successful. And that additional cost that's built into the budget is to continue the cleaning contract that is ongoing for that. I just talked to myself for 5 minutes. The it's for contract cleaning of the building. They, the library staff started that process. It was not successful. Asking the librarian and her staff to be cleaning the public bathrooms and doing that was,
Okay, I'm
did
not
not work
trying to
out.
be
But that's the additional money that's there.
obstructive, but it's almost 3 times the previous budget. So a chunk of that is for a part-time janitor or
It's
something
for
like
a
that?
cleaning service to come in
Okay,
twice a week and do the cleaning.
okay. Thank you.
And he does a lovely job. You only notice it when they don't do a good job.
What?
Any other questions? Council McAvoy?
When you switch, when you eliminate your Saturday hours on your wages, which one of these lines would be affected by that?
I just figure it that way. Some 51 hours during the winter and 46 during the summer. So it's that wages line, the top wages line. But,
So you're paying overtime every week, except in the summer?
no, we have part-time people that work. The regular staff works 40 hours, and the part-time staff picks up the evening hours and Saturdays. And I have one part-time person that only works Saturdays. So she doesn't work during the summer.
So that would be one of your 4 part-time library aides, is that?
Yeah,
That's it?
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda for tonight is the recreation.
Good evening. Shelley Abbott, Hampden Recreation Director. I didn't really have anything planned either, per se, but wanted to thank you all. Several of you have been in touch with me over the last few months as we begin the recreation planning process to come up with a recreation plan. We are in the middle of the development. We just met like last week and are developing a public survey portion, which will be going out to get some feedback about planning for the future from the public. And we hope to have a finalized plan in July or August for your review. So I'm here for taxation requests for the department for our 2001 account. I believe you guys all have that in front of you. Are there any questions about that?
Council McAvoy.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. This has been a mystery to me for years, how this is done. right?
Okay.
And I still have yet to figure it out, even though I've got 3 years of paper here. So when the budget that you're asking for tonight,
Mm-hmm.
because you preface that by saying tax revenue type or tax based. So we're talking, for the 134, what, 699, that's it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So are you prepared to talk about the rec enterprise, or is that somebody else's bailiwick, or?
Rec Enterprise and the Ski-In Center budgets, which were also provided to all of you as part of your packets, was for reference in terms of how the department operates and where its money is generated from for all of the programs that it runs, because the taxation budget pays for the salary and benefits of 2 full-time people. And Rec Enterprise and the Ski-In Center, through fees, pay for everything related to operating the Ski-In Center and everything else, including staffing for all of the programs. Those are, I'm sure that Shelley runs those 2 budgets as well, but those are enterprise budgets that have an income expense, and what is left at the end of the year does not lapse to fund balance like everything else does. It goes to a rec clearing account, hopefully as a positive balance that is appropriated from to do things like resurface the tennis courts or build playgrounds or replace playground equipment and those kind of things, that those fees that are paid by rec users are put into that account, and it's used for recreational purposes, some other rec thing. But in terms of questions of operations or what any, certainly I'm sure that Shelley can answer any of those questions. The reason that they're not part of the taxation budget is because they're not part of the general operating budget. They do not lapse at year end into fund balance and do that. They go to a general ledger account that where the money is there and available for recreational only related purposes moving forward, because that was the source of the fees that generated the money. I thought giving you these, I was trying to be helpful, but I'm sure if you have questions about programming or what is what that on how this works, Shelley would be happy to answer them.
Okay. Do we want to take care of this tax thing first, or, you know? 'Cause
Well, the
I'm-
taxation budget is the one that's going to be voted on in June, yes.
I have no more questions about that particular portion of it.
Okay.
I'll be real brief. These are not strictly budget questions, they're departmental questions. In
Okay.
doing the planning work with people volunteering on that and the surveys,
Yes.
are you including questions about future need of fields?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the second one was just curiosity.
Okay.
All the parking lot being full Saturday, was that some kind of soccer camp or something?
This past Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hosted the Black Bear North Basketball Group, which is a greater Bangor area. They had a tournament both days from 8 to 8 Saturday. Well, it actually ended up being 8 to 9, I think, and then a good portion 8 till about 5 on Sunday. So that was a rental. We provided one staff person for that, but they ran the concessions, they ran the tournament. It was just they used our space, and it was a big day.
Yeah, sounds it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So is there any other questions on the budget part? Nope. Okay, we want to just go into the, Terry's question.
Yeah, I have some more questions on the non-tax issue. I'm looking at the expense detail report for the skiing center,
Okay.
and it says that it costs $56,501 more to operate than what came in revenue. Where does that $56,501 come from? Where do I find it? In the enterprise budget? Where do I find this money? Where did it come from?
Are you, you're talking about the total expenses over the total income in the skiing center line item?
That's correct.
So when we look at that, we consider both the skiing center and the enterprise one and the same. So monies that are over in expenses that the income for the skiing center is not bringing in enough to cover would be taken from the income remaining after expenses are taken from the enterprise side. So
The
if you
rec
put,
enterprise.
yeah, if you put all of the expenses from the 2005 and the 2007 together and all of the incomes together, there is a $24,000 positive number at the end.
Okay, so the last year for the rec department, I guess this is the enterprise budget, says your income was $248,890, expenses $199,357. This year, it's $255,845 for income and $167,670 for expenses. I'm curious how the expenses can be less this year than they were last year. When the skiing center sucked up $57,000 of it.
Are you're reading from the 2005, those numbers you just gave are from the 2005?
I believe.
I've got to flip between two pages, I'm sorry. So I just want to see what you're asking. You said The income for the 2005, the true enterprise account is $255,845.
Correct,
And the expenses for that side is $167,670.
yes.
And you're comparing it to the other side, or was that where the question
The
ended?
prior year.
Yeah, I'm
Oh.
looking at last year's, and so I guess I'm just baffled on.
The numbers you have it in there for last year.
Last year.
I actually went through and I did it line by line of where everything changed. I can definitely give you that, if you'd like me to, or I can forward it to you. It's about this big, because I had a feeling that you'd ask where the expenses changed. Biggest expenses off the top of my head that I know about is, in that line item is, we went from 3 positions to 2 positions. So prior to my becoming the interim director, myself and the director at the time were in the taxation, and then our full-time before and after school and summer camp director came out of the enterprise
Benefits
account.
associated with that
So
position.
salaries and wages and the benefits that affected that third full-time person was a big portion of that one.
Okay, well. Okay, so there is no line item in the enterprise budget that says ski and center deficit $56,000.
No.
So how do you get it out of there? What's? Like I said, this is just the most incredible, mysterious thing I've ever seen in my life. I just don't understand it, sorry.
Rec Enterprise and Skian as cost centers are broken out to see the operation of the building and the operation of programs, but they're treated as one whole big, it's money that is generated from recreation programming and the recreation center, and expenses related to the operation of recreation programs and the operation of the ski and center. They're broken down into 2 discrete, so that the council can see what it costs to have this rec center. This was one of the things that people had concerns over, that the operation of the rec center was going to end up being a taxation item. And were it not for the additional revenue generated by recreation programming, it would either be non-existent because you wouldn't have approved it, or it would have had a taxation component because the ski-in center can't support itself financially. It relies on the recreation programming that goes on in the community to subsidize the cost of that operation. Is that?
This is with intentions to be helpful. If I understand Terry's question correctly, that's the first assumption. What would benefit us in terms of review would be to see an offset line that cites revenue from programs to address what is in essence an inherent deficit in the skiing center, as per what you just explained. If there were a draw,
The combination of these 2 budgets is.
I get that. I think it would be helpful if there were a line somewhere. Almost like the way you could use a balance sheet, but
Well, actually, when we started down this road, we had Rec Enterprise had the skiing center in it. And that created confusion and questions, because people said, what does this really cost us to have this building? What can this building generate on its own? And so we moved it out of that piece, but kept them and have kept them tied together. In every financial report I've ever given you, I've said ski-in and Rec Enterprise have to offset, Rec Enterprise has to offset this or Eric's taxation. That's the only option short of not having the ski-in center. But we can put them together in one budget and have 2 cost centers so that the bottom line clearly shows what is supporting, if that's better. It's not honestly, Carrie, an attempt to confuse. It was separated because other counselors before you didn't like it altogether, so.
Obvious reasons, but what I would like to see is, you've got a library costs X amount of dollars. When you look at the bottom line, that's what it costs. Pool, same thing. Wages, anything that's, you know, directly or indirectly related to that thing that costs money, goes to the pool. That should be on the pool. On the skiing center, same thing, you know, list it all up, the wages, salaries, whatever it takes. And then, on the side over here, if I understand it correctly, the enterprise budget is primarily the revenue that's generated from the kids' corner and the kids' camp, correct?
It's
It's-
all programming.
Every program has
Okay.
a revenue and an expense. All of them,
That may be the biggest two, but it's everything from our outdoor soccer program to our indoor basketball program to renting out the skiing center to, it includes all of that.
And I'll find all of those enumerated in this.
yes.
And not one of them is showing a loss. They're all, the fees that we assess cover the costs associated. When I went through every one of them,
Correct.
they're covered.
We've recently, and I'm sure it has been discussed at committee level, we had to take a look at a few programs that were costing money, and unfortunately had to make some hard decisions about those. Every program currently for next year's budget does show a positive income.
Okay, I understand that if you look at each individual program individually, that's fine. But if it's costing 56,000 plus in the deficit to run the skiing center, how does it make sense to have all of these programs that are being conducted there show that they're making money or they're not losing money when the physical building itself is sucking up $57,000 worth of money? That's the part that I'm confused by, is on the one hand, you say, well, all these programs are just great, they're fine, they're, you know, but they're not.
The programs that are generating the surplus are not, that are not in the income and expense figures for the skiing center. All of the programs that run out of the skiing center and that generate money for the skiing center are in the skiing center. So that net whole is the difference between all the programs that run out of the skiing center and the thing that makes them not generate more is that the cost of utilities and the physical building doesn't have an offset. There's no offset to those costs for heat and lights, and she just invested a large amount of money to reduce the electric bill in the hopes that bottom line, but the programs that run there may generate enough to cover their own costs, but they can't cover the costs of heating and lighting that whole building. That's why the individual programs can show as a positive. The enterprise budget are programs that don't necessarily, they're not associated with the skiing center. They're programs that don't even operate over there. So they generate, and they don't have a building to support, so they're, other than the skiing center, so there's not some big glaring negative number at the bottom of there. And until we added the skiing center, there wasn't a great big glaring negative number at the bottom of the other one either.
So okay, again, I mean, if the skiing center is in a deficit of $57,000, that money has to come from somewhere. Where does it come from?
It's coming from the surplus in the programs that run not at the skiing center.
The enterprise.
That's correct.
Okay, so when I look through this thing, I should be able to find something in here that says that it paid up to and included $56,501 worth of expenses for the skiing center, right?
The way it was set up is you look at these two together, and this positive and this negative are bottom line. If there were a cover sheet on here that showed Rec Enterprise, Skiing Center, the plus and minus, and then the bottom line, and put it together in one thing, one covers the other. That's what it has been doing since it was set up. When it was all in one account, people were confused by what the building could generate for its own income. So it got separated, so you could look at them individually, but it was never the plan that they existed independently of each other once the skiing center was brought on board. Once the skiing center was brought on board, the council at the time understood that the only way to support it was to use fees from recreation programming or taxation.
Yeah, I think, Sue, you just hit it on the head. It's just to do a summary page, bang, 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 I mean, 3 lines and line it out, and it should answer your question, Terry.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's taken me almost 4 years to get this information here. And the skiing center, we've had that, what, 2 years? This will be, what, the second full year that we've had that thing? Second, third?
There are 3 winters in it.
It is. Well, the green light's on anyway.
We moved in December of 2011.
So basically, if we just extrapolate it from that, it's lost, what, $180,000? Right?
It hasn't lost any money.
Well, it's cost more than it's generated, I'll put it that way.
Okay, but you're only paying that cost if you're utilizing the facility. If you're a user and you're paying a fee to go in, you're paying towards those enterprise funds.
I'm talking about the amount of revenue that is taken from some other place to offset this. To me, that's, it's still money that should have gone someplace else originally. Any money that you had in the enterprise account before the skiing center, what did you do with it?
It went to the same place that it's going now, into
Okay,
the
now,
recreation
right.
clearing account.
Correct. I remember sitting over here, and one of the first things that I recall was like $90,000 in a rec enterprise account. And I'm thinking, what the hell? How could that be? Well, I guess that was the difference between what it was costing to run the programs at the time and the Kids Corner, and all that stuff. You had an excess that would in this account, that rolled over into this account to $90,000. What is that balance today?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, 80.
It's a little over $70,000, and that includes, I'm sorry, it's a little over $70,000, and that includes some playground equipment money that was taken out a couple of years ago. That account, that clearing account was fed, shall we say, with the funds in excess of revenues over expenses from the Rec Enterprise, and it still is. There is still a positive balance over and above what Rec Enterprise offsets, has for revenue, offsets for the skiing center. There's still money that goes into that clearing account, which can then be used to buy playground equipment or resurface the tennis courts or any of those kind of purposes, put towards rec fields, whatever it is that you might decide you wanted to use it for a recreational purpose. It's just a smaller amount on an annual basis than before. The other thing that's changed is the amount of money that we're spending. You mentioned it yourself, the expenses are down. Removing part of a full-time salary and full-time benefits from a person, from those costs, from the rec enterprise, frees up more money from fees that is now used to offset the scan center. But before, that full-time person was there, and those expenses ate up that money, not the scan center. The employee expenses ate up a portion of that. But it still feeds it, not at the same rate as it did before, but it is not taking away from the rec clearing accounts balance. It's not reducing that amount of money. Because the difference between the two is still more than the cost of the scan center takes away.
I'm gaining on it. I got nothing else.
Any other questions? Councilor Shakespeare?
Not a question, if I may make a comment, since we've been discussing the skiing center. My opinion, library, swimming pool, and the skiing center is one of the three biggest assets we have in the town of Hamden. I've attended a number of meetings with you, Shelley, lately with the Services Committee, some even with Children's Day you've attended. And my opinion, you're doing a fantastic job along with Jill. And I just want to thank you for taking the reins over and doing this fantastic job
Thank you. I
for
appreciate
the citizens and kids of Hamden. Thank you.
it. Yep, thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the pool.
Hi, I'm Darcy Peacock. I'm the director of the Laura Hoyt Pool. Go ahead.
Stand a little taller.
Stand taller.
The pool taxation budget supports wages, FICA, Medicare, and retirement. All other costs for the pool, including health insurance, life insurance, dental for the 2 full-time people, as well as all the costs of the operation of the facility, heat, lights, et cetera, are offset by approximately $150,000 a year in revenues which are received from the pool. And the pool board also annually makes a $10,000 payment from those fees to repay the loan from the Host Community Benefit Fund that they receive to help with the cost of the air handling system, and puts aside $15,000 in reserve for their long-term capital needs.
Councilor Marble?
I just wanted to confirm that looking at this budget, wages, FICA, retirement, workers' comp are tax-supported. All others are from revenues,
Not wages, FICA, retirement, everything else
not
is...
even workers' comp.
No.
Now, workers' comp and health got moved into the enterprise.
Last year, we took another $20,000 from fees to offset that.
Any other questions? Councilor McAvoy?
When this was segmented again back in 2012, 13, everything from the office supplies down to the travel and training, which I don't have a number in front of me, but it looks like it's about $100,000 or a little better. Where's that account? Who's paying for those now? Where's that?
That comes out of the fees. What the pool brings in comes from my revenue.
Okay, where do I see how much your revenue is? Where's that?
I don't know what you gave you, but I
What
bring
you-
in an estimated cost of $150,000 to $155 is my estimated revenue budget.
The remainder of the expenses are paid by the town as what got created as an enterprise budget for the pool, for the remainder of those costs. I knew you'd love this, Terry. But it supports the rest of it, and the amount, and if any that's left over, stays there to offset long-term costs of the pool. But I can print for you the same report you have, similar to recreation, to show those expenses and what they cost for electricity and fuel and all those other kind of things. They're similar to the budget items that were under 1112. If you look all the way to the left
I can
on the
name a few
budget.
of them off too, and what I have budgeted on each one of those things.
I'm not disputing that somebody somewhere knows what these numbers are. This person sitting right here doesn't know what they are. I can't look at this budget and know. It doesn't say how much you got coming in, doesn't say how much you got going out. All this budget says is how much you want from taxation. That's it. It doesn't say anything else. So I would like to know, how much do you have coming in? How much is going out? Where is the excess? Where does that go? Is that in the enterprise account?
Not rec enterprise.
Is it in the pool enterprise account?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and that has a balance of some sort in it?
Not a very large one. They've only been doing this a couple of years, and because they're repaying the loan to the town for part of it and putting $15,000 a year into reserve, the amount that they have to carry forward it's nowhere near what the rec clearing account had. I don't have that number in my head, but I can have it for you tomorrow so that you can have that.
Question remains, why can't it all be in one budget so we can just look at it and see what the real numbers are? That's what confuses me, is why it's just not here. Why have to go someplace else to look, or ask anybody else? I should be able to look at this and see what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and how much from taxation.
Can I give them this sheet?
If we were reviewing something other than the operating budget for the town, the non-enterprise related, if we were meeting to talk about the town's enterprise accounts and how they work, though that information related to the pool's expenses apart from salary and the skiing and rec would be what you saw and what you see in terms of when we used to budget it, if you look down, that's what you saw, because those were operating accounts for the town. The revenue from this department got put in to offset everything. It was all mixed up. Now that revenue doesn't go in that same way, and the town's taxation effort for this department is smaller than it used to be. But the difference in them is in the kind of budget. You're reviewing your operating budget for the town for what revenues and taxation expenses are part of that budget. To review the enterprise accounts for the town, many communities have them for solid waste and a bunch of other things. We have ours for recreational based as the fee-based ones. And what would probably be very helpful if at the next either finance meeting or the next one of the could-be services that we look over the enterprise accounts for the town and look more in-depth at how they're treated, where the money is, how it's expended, all that kind of stuff. It's not spent any different than anything else. It's just accounted for differently. But it's all audited annually. It's not a part that way. It's just not in the operating budget.
Right, I understand all that. When Mr. or Mrs. John Q. Public out there says they look in the annual report, or they call here, or whatever method they use, when they say, let's see, what's the proposed budget for the Laura Hoyt Pool is, oh, it's only $200,000. Well, that's not true. You're spending what, $350,000? Right, altogether? But I think it's only costing us $202. Big difference.
It
Maybe
is,
it's a matter of perception, I don't know, but.
it's costing the taxpayers on your tax bill $202,000. It's costing the users of the pool $150,000 additional dollars.
You're making my head hurt when you say that.
I'm sorry.
I do think it'll be helpful to review the enterprise accounts. I agree with that. But you can turn this whole thing around and look at it another way. And what I would argue for is the town of Hamden is getting a $350,000 operation for $200,000.
Then great, then put it there so we can know how good a deal it really is. Thank you.
We took it out because people wanted to see the enterprise truly covering all these other costs and not being commingled as part of the taxation budget. So there's, we can put it in, we can take it out, we can put it back. The reason it's not together is because there was a desire to separate those, there was a desire to make the pool pay for itself. That, without adding something to it like that we don't have, like an exercise, we can't do that.
We're audited annually. Have there been any comments from the auditor about, you know, this is misleading, or we should do it a different way, or?
Enterprise accounts are not a town of Hamden invention. Enterprise accounts are run by many communities for things that are specifically fee-driven. Solid waste does it in some cases, so that whatever, if you have left, you can continue to move it forward. It's paid for by a discrete user group for a specific purpose. Pool fees, rec fees fall under that, or we wouldn't be allowed to call it an enterprise account. We wouldn't, our auditors would say, you can't call an enterprise something where you've got some general revenue from a whole bunch of people, from a whole bunch of, we couldn't do that. But I really think it would be helpful to have a meeting where we talk about how you want to see this stuff, and if you want to see it differently, that's fine. I just need to know how you want to see it. If you want everything on the same page, that's gonna explain it to you, and it's gonna confuse others who are gonna say, oh my God, we're raising $300 and some thousand, and you're not raising 300 and some odd thousand. Raising is what taxation does. Appropriating is if you get it from some other, but that becomes a very complicated explanation. That's the. But I'm happy to present it however the council wants to see it, but I can tell you right now that it's being presented the way it is because people have had, at different times, heartburn about seeing it other ways. If you want to see it a different way, you just have to help me understand what it is that you want to see.
I want to be able to see what the pool is costing on an annual basis. It's not $202,000.
No, it is not.
$350,000.
But
And then you write it, well, we got $150,000 in revenue, so that means we only want $202,000 from your pocket. As a taxpayer, as a non-user, as a non-fee user. That's pretty simple. I don't think anybody would be confused by that. I don't see how they could be. This is more confusing. Because when you look at the rec, if you look at the rec enterprise altogether, I mean, if you look at the ski-in center and, kids going, all that stuff, you're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars that people are just not aware that are being spent. They just look at this number here and say, oh, yeah, it's only $150,000. Well, no, it's not. It's closer to like 500,000. I don't see anything, difficult about putting, revenues in there, whether they're generated through fees or whatever. You subtract those out, and this is how much we're gonna tax you. Doesn't confuse me. This confuses me.
That wasn't the intention, Councilor McAvoy, and
That was
I'm
the
sorry
effect.
I'm sorry if that's the outcome. I just apologized, and my mic wasn't on, and so, well, I don't know if John Q. Citizen did, but that's what my mouth was saying, was I'm sorry.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next item is debt service.
The town has, one of the, our LL Bean purchase is paid for as of this year, so you'll notice no appropriation under that, request under that for this coming year. The last $37,267.32 on that note has been paid off of the total $360,000 that cost. And I'm happy to report that the gravel road paving, that $84,167, that's the last debt service payment on that also. So debt service will drop another $84,000 next year on top of the $37,000 that it dropped this year because that note has paid off. Leaving the Mayo Road rebuild and the municipal building addition, which is the this second half of this building, as the town's debt service. The debt service on the sewer system is not reflected here because sewer debt service is paid by sewer user fees, which is a separate consideration. And I attach for you the debt service schedules that show what each one is and what the payments will be moving forward.
Any questions? Okay, next would be the reserves.
Okay. Request in the reserve accounts this year is an additional $20,000 to, part of which to use to do the area of floor downstairs that we didn't do last year because we have drainage issues that we have to fix up here first, and that's not part of reserve budget, that's part of Public Works work. The computer reserve, or the tech reserve as it's called, has a schedule that identifies each of the items for which we are setting aside money over the which is the plotter replacement, LCD projectors, public safety server, town office server, laptops, counselor tablets, networking equipment, phone system, ambulance laptops, the surveillance system, camera system that's in this building, and cruiser laptops. Those are the items for which some of this $15,000.
Those are on a schedule.
Yes.
You didn't just read a list of everything that's going to be replaced this year.
No. This is just,
Just
we
saying
put,
that for
we set aside
clarification.
we set aside $1,000 a year towards a plotter replacement with an idea that we're going to replace it in 6 years. So every one of them they're not all going to be replaced this year. Everyone has a schedule, and they just get so much money a year. Public Works equipment, I have bumped up. We have 2 final payments on lease purchases that are in there last year, and I included $65,000 for the cost of rehabilitating our trackless, and that's more than just fixing the broken, it's bringing it up. We have all the pieces that go with this sidewalk plow, the blower, the sweeper, all these kind of things that, and a new machine is $110,000 or more. This one didn't have a lot of hours when it lost its mind, shall we say. So the budget includes sufficient to rehabilitate that. There'll need to be something done for plowing ability on the sidewalks, and that what is in this year's budget, whether you use that 65 to rehab your current one, or you decide to do a lease purchase and pay for a new one over a couple of years, you have enough money to address the sidewalk plow needs in that area. Streets and roads is $100,000 towards your paving budget for next year. The library reserve is a $5,000 that goes to the library building repair reserve for things not part of the building maintenance. And then salary and benefits reserve has $40,000 in it that I put in that would allow the manager and the council to add part-time planner capacity if you choose to do so in the coming, or whatever you choose to do. There's funds, $40,000 there to allow the council and the new manager flexibility in staffing.
Just so I'm clear on how we can proceed with that money right there that you just said. If we decide not to add a part-time planner, could that money offset? say, the
Salary and benefits, salary benefit reserve, you could use it for any position you chose. I put it there with the idea that if you needed that capacity, that's the one that's been,
I'm just trying to figure out.
you have authority under,
Scenario.
under salary benefits reserve, you have the authority to use that money for anything related to salary and benefits for anybody you want to.
Okay, but within salary and benefits.
That's right. And that's the reserves that are proposed for this year.
Questions? Councilor Marble?
Just one. It's great when I have questions and I don't know what I'm talking about, which is frequent. I know a lot of, thank you. Did you have your mic on for that, Councilor Shakespeare? A lot of road projects are multi-funded. You can have federal, state, and local dollars in them. I'm just wondering conceptually, when we set aside 100 grand for paving, is any of that as an eye towards using it as seed money for bigger projects, or is that more or less, we have to keep up with roads A, B, and C on our own, our money, that's what that reserve is for?
That's what that reserve is for. And the town, when it's taken on any major, when it rebuilt Mayo Road and did sidewalks and underground drainage and blah, 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 straightened out all that, the town has gone to referendum and to bond to that for two reasons. One, our charter requires that we go to referendum on anything. Number two, that to borrow a certain amount, but the referendum itself also gets public buy-in on these very major projects, rather than the town having, the council having made some decision because it was part of an appropriation.
Did we look into the 1A project that's coming up that we've got to come up with $100,000 and something?
The BACS program is looking at changing how that is going to happen, rather than eat it in 3 or 4 more pieces to consolidate it into bigger pieces, which moves it out a year or two beyond where we are right now. So I did not account for that
Well,
amount of money.
I knew the
But that
last
is,
time we had been discussing
that was the that was a discussion, but there's
Yep.
there's a plan that, where they want to do a larger part of that, and so it won't look like it looks right now. I don't know what that will
Okay.
be.
Terry?
On the, like the fire truck and cruisers and stuff like that, are these, are we not putting any money into reserve for any of the, like, trucks and whatnot, or is that covered? Is that something else?
What we've done for the past several years was that if there was whatever in the fire department budget, you know, whatever that was left over at the end of the year got put into fire truck or ambulance reserve in order to feed those without having to raise additional money on top of that. Yes. Yes, that's how we've been feeding those reserve accounts. And some aren't in a position to need more money right now. They were specific use items that have not been identified for another. And some are, the need is so huge you can't we looked at what it would take to 100% fund a public works equipment reserve, and it was like we had to front load it with almost $1 million and then feed it at X amount, and that was, nobody, had the appetite for that kind of an expenditure.
So we don't have a reserve account per se for rec fields or?
We have a reserve account that's called the Rec Conservation Reserve, and that reserve is fed from open space fees paid by developers who have chosen to pay a fee in lieu of giving some of their land up for open space in a development. I believe there's $69,000 or $71,000 in that right at the present time. And that, the purpose of that money is for the purchase of green space or recreation space or those kind of, that's why that reserve, those open space monies went into it, because the open space requirement under our subdivision ordinance relates to green space and the need for that. So there is money there that could be used if the town decided that it wanted to purchase land for eventual fields. It could use some of that as seed money or supplement that with an additional appropriation or a loan. If the loan wasn't more than a certain percentage of 10% of your last operating budget, you can do that without a referendum.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then I would say we've made it through the list. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you, folks.